Again, welcome to everybody. We are here from University of Illinois Extension to share with you about traveling, saving money, and traveling safely. And I am Kathy Sweedler. I'm a consumer economics educator from serving Champaign, Ford, Iroquois, and Vermilion counties. We're a mighty team of 3 consumer economics in the state of Illinois, and you have all 3 of us educators on with you. We love to travel as well as educate, so we thought we'd share some of our photos, and I'm going to let my co-presenter Kamaya introduce herself.
Hi, everyone, and welcome. My name is Kamaya Wallace-Bichard. I share the same role as Kathy and Sasha, and I serve Livingston, Woodford, and McLean counties.
All right. And Sasha, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
I'm Sasha Gravenstetter, and I'm just here to help out with the chat and enjoy the presentation.
Wonderful, thank you. And also Brooke Shrewsbury, program coordinator with Consumer Economics, is also here today. So you'll be seeing lots of great resources and information in the chat. And if you haven't used a chat before and you're at a computer or a laptop or a tablet, you want to look on your control bar. There should be like a little message thing, a little message blip that looks like a cloud that you can click on that and your chat will open up. Sometimes it hides under the more, the 3 little dots that say more, and you can click there and find it. So we hope that you'll be able to join with some commentary and feedback in the chat as we go. And of course, questions. If something isn't clear to you, please let us know. And we, just so you all know, we will be sending a follow-up email. It'll have a list of the different resources and links that we are going to be talking about. So if you see something go by and you don't grab it, no worry, you'll have a second chance with that email. So I thought we would just kind of get things warmed up. And if you would please put in the chat which Illinois county or which state you are here from. We always love to know where people are and just what we're, where we're seeing them, everybody from. So that's going to go fast today. It looks like lots of counties in Illinois, Colorado, Cook County, Moultrie, Lake, Monroe, Piatt. Well, we've got truly across the country. Santa Cruz, that's close to where I grew up. I love Santa Cruz. California, great. Minnesota. Wow, thank you everybody for coming on. This is really exciting. It's kind of actually fun that here we are talking about travel and I'm already getting pictures in my mind of these different places out there that I have at some point in my life really enjoyed traveling to and about. So, all right. So what are we going to be doing today here? What we're going to do is a variety of things. We want to take some time and really think about, if we're going to be taking a trip, how will that look in terms of our spending plan? And I think one of the things I wanted to kind of say before I jump into objectives too far here is, for some of us, it's been a while since we've really been able to travel. We picked this topic back before the pandemic to plan and to prepare for. And I said, as us educators, we all love to travel and teach. And so it seemed like a great topic for everything. And while we were working on this, we were reflecting about how wonderful it's been to dream again about travel and to think about it. So whether or not you have travel planned right now, I hope you'll join us in dreaming and thinking about the pros and advantages of traveling when it's safely. And we can all start to plan. So that's kind of where we are on that today. So this is going to be a good chance for us to start planning today and thinking about how creating a spending plan can help that process. We're going to talk about how can we compare different ways of traveling and still keep our costs manageable. And then we want to also take a look at, of course, traveling safely. That's that's become a bigger deal recently, and I think it's worth us talking about a little bit. So okay, so I'm going to keep my eye on the chat as we go, but let's just kind of start this off with a quick poll. And all these polls will be anonymous, so they're just for fun. And I'm going to launch it. And I'm curious, what is your favorite way to travel? Do you like to go by boat, an airplane, bus? What's your mode of travel that you like? And seeing that coming through here, we'll give everybody a cruise. Yeah, feel free to put it in the chat. If the poll doesn't work for you, I know different modes aren't always good. Plane is always best, or a car for a road trip, I see. All right, got a countdown going here, just a couple more seconds if you haven't got your vote in and you want to. I think I'll go ahead and stop that and share the results with you. So really close tie there for car and plane as being our two top ones. But the definite number of votes for boats were in there as well. So, and of course, as people are saying in the chat, it really depends on where you're going and what you want it to look like. But again, just kind of a fun thing to get us started here today. Okay, so it looks like we've got everybody is getting on, even if you struggled a little bit. We've just done the introductions and now we're getting going. So you haven't missed anything important yet. And I'm going to turn this over to my colleague, Kamaya Wallace-Bouchard, to take over the next ones.
All right, thank you, Kathy. Thanks for a great introduction. So now we're going to get into the meat of some of what we want to cover today. So we have taught a lot about, creating like your spending plans, creating like your budget. But when it comes to travel, like something that you are absolutely looking forward to, how a spending plan can come in very handy for you. So a spending plan is a useful tool that can help when you're planning a trip. It can help you estimate the cost of your trip. And I said estimate because sometimes we have like wonderful ideas of what things might cost, but the cost might go up or some things might change. So just knowing that it can help you with estimating that cost. And of course, provide you with like a picture of, what you would like to do. And so if you, and when you create your spending plan and you see kind of like that estimated amount, is that something that you can handle right now, or maybe you need to kind of revise that a little bit, make some adjustments to your plans to make sure that it is within like a price range that you can afford right now. So, with like your spending plan, it can help you, prepare for your trip, as well as help you track like your expenses while you're on your trip. So what are some of the expenses that may come up when we think about like when we're planning for a trip, like what are the things that we're going to be needing for that trip? And of course, some of those expenses, and one of the big part of those expenses has to do with like your lodging, right? So where are you going to be staying? And of course, with like your lodging, this varies based on, what you're actually doing. Kathy, if you want to go on to like the next slide. So with like your lodging, so, to and from your destination, where you're going to stay during your trip, and what are some of the additional fees that you might need to consider? So again, with like your lodging, it varies from trip to trip. So it could be a summer trip where you're taking with like the family or with friends, and you're doing maybe like camping. So it might be like tent camping. So when you're thinking about like going to a campsite and maybe paying like a fee for that, versus if you're going to an all-inclusive somewhere where, you want like kind of different experience. So your lodging, of course, depends on a lot of those different factors. So what type of arrangements you are comfortable with, that's also another thing. Because even though I like camping, I have family members who just do not, they don't find it ideal to be outside in a tent. They want to do more like glamping or something similar to that. So, finding out like what you are comfortable with and what's going to help you to like enjoy your trip. So as you're looking to see, what is my lodging situation going to look like? And what are some of the expectations versus reality of what might actually happen once I get to my destination? So thinking about that with like road trips, sometimes people have to plan because maybe it's a longer trip, so you might have to make a stop. So maybe staying somewhere at a hotel along your stop. So that, of course, becomes an important part of like that planning process for your spending plan as well. So again, lodging is very important expense to have on your spending plan, and we'll talk a bit more about that too. The other potentially large expense has to do with transportation. Yes. So traveling to and from your destination and transportation while you're at your destination. So what is the transportation situation look like? So for some, when you're thinking about to and from your destination, if it's a road trip where you're taking a personal vehicle or renting a vehicle, or if you are driving to the airport versus taking a taxi to the airport. So a lot of different pieces that come into play within your spending plan as you're thinking about like, what is my transportation situation going to be? So of course, for road trips with like your fuel and other things like that, that might be important. Thinking about like wear and tear on your vehicle, other things with like that maintenance piece. So what are the things that you need to do beforehand or consider as you're creating like your spending plan? Also with like traveling and, to like your destination, looking to see like, when's the best time that I should travel, to see when there's like peak seasons, when there's like a lot of people traveling to your destination during that time, or is there off-peak season where you can maybe try to arrange your trip around a time when it's not so busy. I know for some people, like we all get like similar holidays off. And so it is easy to travel when you do have like those time off. But if you can try to fit it in, so you're kind of traveling like off season, off peak time, when it's not so busy, those can also help you too as you're figuring out like transportation. The other piece, in addition to getting to and from your direction and arranging like for taxi or your own personal vehicle, is transportation at your destination. How are you going to get around? So, are you staying in a kind of country villa-like, or you're in the city? How are you going to get around? Try to navigate like public transportations. If you do rent a car or have your own car, what about parking? That could be parking at the hotel, parking at different events that you want to go to, parking in the city. Just understand a little bit more about how that's going to work for you at your destination as you're thinking about like parking, and finding like reasonable prices, because it can get spendy, right? So finding like reasonable prices. And of course, you can always look online to see what your estimated parking fees would be like, say, for example, if you're in Chicago. When it comes to the transportation piece, I want to break it down just a little bit more for you. And as consumer economics educators, we love talking about comparing prices because it's so important. And for us as educators, we travel to conferences yearly. We didn't last year because of the pandemic, of course, but we travel to conferences, and part of our travel is trying to see which is the cheapest mode for us to go. And we do that too in our personal lives. And so for the comparison piece, as you're thinking about creating like your spending plan, like what mode of transportation will work well for me? Would work well for like this type of trip? Does it make sense to drive my own car? Is it better to fly, just looking at the prices? So airline prices, prices of ground transportation. Can I take the train? Like I like going up to Chicago, like I'm just a couple hours outside of Chicago. So I like to take the train up when we can. And so does it make sense to take the train or travel by bus? Also, I'm thinking about my own car, how much mileage is on my car, and how much more mileage I want to put on my car. So maybe a rental vehicle might be the best option for me. And thinking about to see, what options do I have? So if you do work for a company that may offer like discounts through some rental agencies, that you might be able to look at that to see if you would qualify for any kind of discounts that might be available to you for a rental vehicle. But part of it with like creating like your spending plan, and I know it seems like a lot of work, but I promise it's not. Once you start thinking more about it and you put like those numbers down, just making sure that you are looking at what the difference is in price. And also too, for some people, they're okay being in the car for many hours, but when you're traveling with friends or loved ones who are not so great in the car, that can be hard. That can be hard on your relationship. So think about that if you're traveling with other people as well too, to see like what the best mode of transportation is. There's a great resource that we want to share with you, a very handy resource from the US Department of Energy. And this resource just helps with you with breaking down and kind of calculating, what it would be kind of like the benefits, how would this work for me if I decide to travel by car. And I took this task up on by myself because I really wanted to see. My partner and I always thought about doing like a cross-country trip. And so we put in like the vehicle that we would be driving, where we're starting from, where our end destination is, and places that we might stop in between to see an estimate, to get kind of like an estimate of what it would cost us in gas for that trip. So just looking to see at like the vehicle piece as an important part, of course, of your spending plan. Like what would that look like if we decided to do this cross-country road trip? I know we probably have some people who have done those before, but it's still on our book to do, and we don't know when we're going to do it yet, but just like looking at what opportunities there are for that. And this again is a great resource where you can just simulate, just put in some numbers and see what it gives you back, and just learn a little bit more about what it will kind of cost you. Because of course, with gas in Illinois, gas prices in Illinois may not be the same as gas prices as we're moving out towards California. So just making sure that you're looking to see kind of like an estimate of what all of that would be for you. All right, so like Kathy said, we love to use the chat and we love when you participate. So I have a question for you. Please tell us in the chat, which travel costs are commonly forgotten? What are some things that when we're planning our trips, it's like in the middle of it, we're like, oh yeah, that's right. We will need to pay for this. Ooh, tips, souvenir, city parking fees, extra snacks. Yes. Tips and tolls, entrance fees, taxis, medical expenses. So we'll talk some more about like insurance and other things that a little bit later on. But yes, you are right. And I love this list because it adds to some of the ideas that we have on our list. So this just really does help us. So thank you for sharing those. So yeah, lots of different things that, we're excited about where we want to go. We're excited about our trip. And so there are other fees that might kind of slip our mind just a little bit. Or yeah, I love this one, Seisha. Like if you forget like your sunglasses. So for me, like there might be things that are important to you, or you run out of sunscreen, like other things, and you might need to go shopping for some things that you forgot. So lots of little things that you might need that's going to help you, of course, include like more things on your spending plan. So things that we commonly forget. So yeah, thank you for sharing those. I see umbrella, toothbrush. Yes, I've forgotten toothbrush as well too. So I have to buy some a little bit more expensive than I would. And bug spray, very, very true. All right, thank you for sharing those. Now, I know we have a lot of pet lovers and lots of families and individuals with pets. So what about these fellows? What about them when we are thinking about like traveling? So when we're thinking about traveling and we're thinking about like what is going to work well for our pets, just knowing that, there are different types of arrangement that of course you could make, and the type of arrangement that you are making, think about like the cost for that. So for some folks, they might have like the daycare kind of setting, so the boarding kind of setting where they, have the ability to leave their pets. Some may have family or friends watch their pets, but just knowing that based on your travel arrangements, your lodging situation, just knowing that some places that even though they might accept pets, that pet has to be a certain breed, certain size, different things that they do follow as they're able to like take on your pets with you. So just making sure that we're including the cost. Again, we're always going to tie this back to money. We're always going to tie this back to just the overall cost of your trip, making sure that you are tying that back to like your spending plan. This is the category that you would like to include because it can add up depending on how long you will be gone. So even if you do have like, friends or family members, taking care of your pets, making sure that you have everything arranged for them. And if anything happens while you're gone, they're well taken care of. So I'm just keeping that in mind as you're thinking about like with like arrangements for your pets. Okay. All right. So I see some comments going on in the chat. If you have questions, please feel free to add them. Another important piece, and this one is, I like this one because when we think about like with the money and the currency exchange, I always like to just go on Google to see like, what's the US dollar cost in Jamaica or Japan. So like different things like that. So understanding as you're traveling, where you're traveling to, like the currency there, and what that kind of conversion rate is going to look like for you. And so with like the travel piece too, another travel cost, of course, can be like the foreign exchange fee that you might have to pay when you were converting that money, and knowing that you'll probably pay a percentage of the amount that you are changing, that you are converting. You have to pay a percentage towards that in fees. So making sure that when you are thinking about like, how am I going to get this done? Whether you're going to be doing that through an agency at the airport, just different things that you can do as you're figuring out how to change your US dollars or to keep your US dollars. So making sure that you're making note of that. I've had like different experiences with like using like ATMs for withdrawals internationally, but just making sure that you're checking with like your financial institution, what the currency exchange rate is. Again, it's easy to find online. And I think a couple of these numbers have changed, but this is just, of course, just like an example of what you will see. So definitely when it comes to like these types of exchange pieces, do a little bit of background information, a little bit of research to see what you would get charged in fees. So as you're saying, okay, I have, a few $100 that I want to change, making sure that you're including like that fee in kind of like your spending plan and the cost of what is all going to cost you kind of in the end. And also knowing that, what's the value of your dollar? So in some countries, the same item might, the price might vary a lot. And I go back to like an example of a friend. We were all visiting in Florida, and they were from Canada, and they wanted to go to the grocery store to buy the hot chocolate packets. And I was very curious. I'm like, I'm sure you guys have that in Canada. And he's like, yeah, but when you do like the exchange rate, it's cheaper for us to just get it here. So he got like a couple packets of the hot chocolate and brought back with him. And I was thinking about that, just to say how did some of the difference. So something that might cost one price and you would think it would be a similar price in the country that you're going to, how different that might be. So just another thing to think about. All right, so with your spending plan, what are you going to do? What do you need to add on that? I keep saying it over and over, right? Create your spending plan, add it to your spending plan. But for us, we have some simple examples that we use. And again, like these are guides. These are our guides that we like to share, but you can create yours however you need it. And you can add different categories, and you can delete categories that are not applicable to your situation. So in this example, for like our travel spending plan, we have our expenses, we have the estimated costs, and then we have some notes in case you want to add a couple things there. So when it comes to like some of the bigger expenses, right? So with transportation, again, I talked a little bit about that before, to and from your destination, how are you going to get around during your trip? Looking at like tolls and price of gas, and looking at like different parking fees. And then of course, as your accommodations, where are you going to stay? What are there additional fees that I need to think about that I didn't come across? And so making sure that you're adding those. And of course, food. This is why a lot of us travel, right? Just for the food. We travel just for the food and maybe, some sightseeing, but trying like different food. So a lot of times when we think about like our food budget, sometimes that can go beyond what we had planned, but just making sure that you're trying to your best to keep on top of that. So, on the journey to your destination, where are you buying food? Like, how much are you going to be spending during your trip? How are you going to eat? And we'll talk a little bit more about food as well too. But also knowing, depending on how long you're staying, should you make like a quick grocery store run? Have some snacks on hand, for what you can have in between meals. Then, of course, we're thinking about like entertainment, some of the other trip costs that we may not have thought about, like the sunglasses, same with Seisha too, or thinking about things that we need to do before we travel. So, get in maybe like new summer styles, right? So new things that, you want to update your closet just a little bit because your summer stuff is, a few years old and you want a couple new things to add. So just making sure that you're including like those costs in your plan. And again, these are guides and you can definitely reshape it to your what you want it to look like for your travel experience. Now I want to focus just a little bit on kind of like creating like a specific goal. So we've done a lot of different of our like webinars or training sessions and other things that we've taught on like goal setting and wanting to help folks kind of narrow down like what that goal actually is. Because I guess if we ask any of us, we're like, yes, I want to go somewhere. I want to go have fun. That is not very specific, right? But you want to do something that is going to be wonderful for you. So when we're thinking about like creating like travel goals, how do we help you with like putting together a goal that is reasonable within kind of like your budget and is very specific to you? So with like our travel goals, so say for example, we wanted to share this example. So, it's April 2021 and you want to save for a trip to Florida. And of course, this trip to Florida, we're in Florida. You can, say, for example, you're thinking of a trip to like Tampa, Florida. And based on the estimates that you have calculated, you believe that $1,800 will do for like this trip for you. This is your solo trip that you want to go on and you just want to take some time off for you. And you're putting in some time to plan ahead. So you are planning ahead to have like all the amount that you need by December 1st, 2021. So what does that actually look like? It means that you do have a date that you want to start, your very specific goal that you have in mind, the amount that you need, and the date that you will need like that total amount. And so how are you going to get there? And so part of like the end part of that table shows you how you might be able to break that down by month. So when we're creating like these different goals, trying to make your goals like very specific to like what you want to do and helping you breaking down like how you're going to be able to do that each month. Now you might create this goal and then you look at it and like, I know I have some stuff going on in the summer, so I might not be able to save, the whole 200 by that, for 1 month during the summer, or a couple months during the summer. So part of this, as you're creating your goal, is for you to revise it, reevaluate it, just make it work for you and to see how best to try to save, if you need to push it out just a little bit longer, or if you have like a couple other months that you could save a little bit more. Again, as an example, you can use it, how it might work for you and reshape that to what's going to work for you again. So like I said, we've covered a lot on, creating like different savings goals. We've done like our SMART goals, different types of goals setting that we've covered. And one of our favorite has to do with our Family Financial Feud podcast, where both Seisha, Kathy, and I covered goal setting. And for us, we love podcasting. So if you are interested in other topics, there are lots of different topics that we cover on there. One of our latest one that Sasha just put out is on financial transparency, a great conversation that she had with a colleague. So just so you know, we have lots of resources that can help you. But in terms to creating like your travel spending goals, this webinar would be very great for you to listen to. So if you have some time as you're in the car or doing other things too to put it on, it's a great listen for you. All right, are there any questions as I'm going on? All right, now tracking your expenses. So you are traveling, you've put together your spending plan, things are looking good, you're trying your best to keep on top of things. You see about 1 million things you want to do on this trip, but you got to keep it, within like a certain amount that you want to. You don't want to go too overboard with it. So a different piece with like trying to track your expenses is, what is a convenient way for you to do that while you're on your trip that doesn't feel burdensome? And so for this, like we use like these examples, of course, when you're tracking like your everyday expenses in your regular life outside of travel, but these are also very applicable to like your travel spending plan as well. So it could be a situation where you have maybe like petty cash in like your envelope, where you have separate envelopes for, okay, these are for the museum passes. This is for the bus pass that we're going to be getting. This is for lunch this week. So however you want to do that. For some people, they might not be very comfortable with having like a lot of cash, like in different envelopes while they're on a trip, but just making sure that if it's maybe like petty cash and you want to arrange it that way to make it easier if you're traveling with like multiple people and you can divvy that up amongst yourself, then you can, of course, use like that option to help you just keep it organized, just keep it a little bit, so it doesn't feel like you might be overspending more than what you want to spend on. The other piece, of course, too, still with like using a spreadsheet, that can also be mobile. I have my spreadsheet on my phone. I have my spreadsheet on my phone that I'm able to track things as well too. So if you wanted to do it that way, because that's a comfortable way that you have been doing that, you can definitely use that as well. If you do use phone apps, and there are lots of different budgeting tools that you can use. Of course, you can input that information into like the different apps that you might want to choose from. And I know people probably have lots of different suggestions or experiences using like different budgeting app, but just Google them or look them up through like different resources to see like what are some of the best ones that you could possibly use. The other piece, of course, has to do with just the old-fashioned way of just writing things down. So if that works for you, if you have a bag that you're traveling around with and you can just jot things down as you go, if that's convenient for you, because you don't want to be on your phone all the time, that if that works, then that works. So just making sure that you are trying your best to keep track of things. And again, different ways that you can do that, just find a way that you feel comfortable with. Now, I mentioned phone apps, and while we're not going to be listing like any specific recommendations, we just want to talk a little bit briefly about this, because there are different types of phone apps that can help you organize like your expenses, and they're often like fast and convenient and easy for you to use. So they can help you, create like categories that are going to be useful for you. So, while you're on your trip, again, food is a big thing. Maybe transportation, like getting from one destination, one place to the next. Tracking like all those information. You may also be able to like scan like your receipts. So for example, if you buy something that maybe you're paying cash for, because with a lot of like our credit cards, if we're using those, you of course can track those quite easily. But sometimes with the cash, you get like your paper receipt, and where did the receipt go? So maybe using like your apps to help get that organized. And what that really does is provide a good snapshot of your spending. Because sometimes we might be tracking what we are putting on our credit card, but we forget that, wait a minute, I had $200 in cash. Where did that go? So making sure that, you are trying your best using like these different apps to help you track what you can, if that's something that you're comfortable with. Or you can just try your best to hang on to those receipts, and at the end of the day, maybe get that all together and figure out like what you spend that day. So just making sure that you have like these different options and things that you can choose from. All right, great. So we're going to move on a little bit. We got some, of course, more great content for you. But one of the great pieces with like thinking about like travel expenses is, what are some ways we can reduce costs? And we get that question. I always have that question. I know like for my colleagues, they travel a lot, and I have friends who travel a lot too. So I ask their opinions on things. And so, what are some ways to reduce costs when you're traveling? Trying to understand what are going to be some of the things that I really need. What are some things that maybe wants that I might need to rethink? So for us, when we're thinking about reducing like travel costs, we try to look at different options, different ways that can help you, that can help us as well. So the step down cost piece here. So I have two examples on here with, going to like this wonderful destination that you've been wanting to go to for a while, or you've just been really, really wanting to go back and revisit. You're thinking about all these wonderful places that you can eat. Oh, I love talking about food. All the different places that you can eat, and you want to try them all. But sometimes we have to think a little bit beyond that and try to step that down a little. So instead of eating like our 3 meals a day at 3 different restaurants that we really want to try, just making sure that you are setting it up so depending on how long you're going to be staying at your destination, I'm looking to see if you can eat out for 1 meal and maybe do like groceries again for snacking, or other things like that, or even further down, like eating out 1 meal per day. But it depends on like your arrangement, your situation. So, and of course, with like some restaurants, some of our fancy restaurants, it might be cheaper to eat there during the lunchtime than it is at dinner time. So think about that piece too, as we're thinking about like, how do I step down the cost for how expensive like these restaurant meals may be? Somebody put like all-inclusive resorts. Yes, it might be included in the price for you as well. And sometimes you want to go out to have like something different, but making sure that you're taking advantage of what's accessible to you. So again, I've stayed at places where they do offer like really good complimentary breakfast that, or even if it's not that great, sometimes it's just a little coffee and you get some toast or something like that, right? But if you can get like those complimentary breakfasts instead of eating out for breakfast time, I'm just making use of that. That can be very, very helpful. The other piece has to do with like events or admissions. So I drive my family nuts when I travel anywhere because I want to see everything. And I want to do everything. And they don't think that's vacation because they need to relax more. But I want to see too much. So when it comes to like events and admission tickets to different places, I'm just making sure that you're keeping it reasonable for you. With like, what tickets am I going to get to see what event? Do I want to just pick a couple really good things that I've always wanted to see before I make that decision to try to just like pick from a list and pick multiple? So just making sure that you are taking the time to pick like just a couple good ones instead of wanting to do everything like myself, which again, drive my people nuts. So when I think about this, I have like an example of, I believe it was Lion King. Like my husband and I were traveling overseas, and I've always wanted to see Lion King on like Broadway in New York. But where we were traveling, it was so much cheaper than trying to see it in New York. So that became like our big thing where we're like, this is our event that we're going to be doing. We're not going to try to do like this other concert or thing that you want to do, but just making it very specific, because then that helps us to know that, okay, this is what we have budget for this event, this entertainment. Yes, there are other attractive things, but this is what we're going to do. So this is just an example of 2 examples of how you can step down costs for, figuring out events or mealtime, how you're deciding on mealtime. And we hope that these are, of course, are helpful for you. we're going to talk a little bit more about savings apps. So with like these like apps, there are different ones that you can use to save money. And that becomes important because there are different types of travel apps. And they can help you plan like just the different parts of your trip. So whether it's like flight, figuring out currency, splitting bills, sharing transportation, lots of different ones that you can have, and individual ones that I know people have used in the past. So when you're thinking about this, again, just looking to see like what are some of the best travel apps that can help me save money. And not just with the different apps too, we always caution people to be careful to read reviews about them before making like any big decisions about whether or not you want to use those apps, but just making sure that you are looking to see, you know, what area of my trip this app would help me with. So if I am traveling by car, there's a lot of things, a lot of flexibility that I have when I'm traveling with my own car or a rental that I may not have if I just fly to a destination and then I have to figure out transportation. So just making sure that you are thinking ahead about like, you know, how you are getting to like that destination and what are some of the different apps that can help you for those different pieces. So whether it's for food, you know, splitting the costs for transportation, splitting the cost for food, you know, all those different aspects of how like an app can help you with that. My other piece that I want to talk about is just making sure that, you know, as you're tracking like your expenses, you know, when we're on vacation, we don't want to think about certain things. We just want to have fun and make those decisions. And yes, you know, making like those decisions that just bring you joy on your trip makes you want to go back, makes you want to do more things. Those are very important, but also kind of being just like a little bit conscious of like some of the decisions that you make in terms of like your day-to-day spending. So this example on here just shows you how small amounts can add up over time. And this is based on an example of like a 10-day trip. So here you are at your ideal destination. And, you know, there are different things that you're doing each day. And so for like snack time, you know, in between meals, because, you know, you're hanging out at the pool, you're doing other things and you just want like a drink or a snack. You know, when you think about like the cost to like maybe use like a vending machine, how that $1.50 2 times a day, how that might end up, you know, costing you a lot. And even like with souvenirs, for some of us, we go out, we see different things. And it's just like, oh my gosh, this is so beautiful. I will need to get this today. And then you may get a t-shirt tomorrow or other things like that. Just making sure that you are aware of how like these amount might add up. And here's the kicker too. If there are multiple people traveling, so if you're traveling together with other loved ones, think about if they're doing some of the same things you're doing, that amount is even higher. So just making sure that you're tracking like what your daily spending is. And again, I saw some people have like, they have some other things in the chat too, like for different suggestions, but just making sure that, you know, for snack time, should we like take $20 and do like a quick grocery snack run, things that are going to be cheaper to get at the grocery store versus I'm going to the vending machine every day. Ooh, and Sandra says photos are the best souvenirs. Yes, they are beautiful. So if you're going through the presentation, you're seeing some of the photos from us as educators and others that we have in here too. So yes, great souvenirs. All right, so I have a quick question for you. So tell us again, share in the chat a money saving tip that you have related to travel. So if a friend is asking you a question, how do you save money when you travel? What would you say? All right, I see some great ones coming out. I see, you know, don't buy souvenirs. Reusable water bottle, take your snacks. I like to take my snacks with me as well. What are some other ones? Travel off season again to save on hotel. Lots of different things, you know, finding like free options that you might be able to use. Yes, lots of great ideas. Groupon, look for free events. Yes, these are great ideas. And thank you again for sharing, because these do help us as we plan, other things, maybe a blog post or further develop or presentation on Save on Travel. So this will definitely help us. All right, thanks everybody. I think I have one more slide for you before I pass it on to Kathy. So when we think about some of our favorite travel tips, looking to see, and a lot of you have mentioned these on here, with free museum or event days sometimes, sometimes they're open concerts, especially during the summertime at the parks, things that are open and available for you that you don't have to pay to go see. Or if you do, it's a small amount that you do pay. Another thing, of course, is, bring some walking shoes with you. I know you're going on a trip, you want to wear your fancy stuff, but it's also nice if you have those comfortable walking shoes for you if you need to get from one place to the next where you don't need to take a taxi or use public transportation. I have family that lives in New York, and every time I go, it's usually for a couple weeks, so I make sure that I get my Metro pass. So it's cheaper for me to buy a pass for a week or for a couple of weeks, just to make sure that I am using public transportation and not paying a lot with doing ride share. So I kind of weigh to see how well it's going to work for me. Traveling off season. Yes, that's great. When we think about travel, again, we get lots of similar vacation, but if you have vacation time or have other time that you can plan around, like a major holiday or a peak time. I know for some places in the Caribbean, like peak season, we're heading in there now, where there's going to be lots of travel, in the spring to summertime, with lots of festivals and things like that they do have. So just making sure that you're kind of traveling that off season. There are also different tourist cards that you can of course get for just discounts. So they have what they call, of course, the sightseeing cards that are passes that you may have that may include some discounts. So you may buy that for a week if you're there for a week and you want to go see just different things around the area that you are vacationing. You might be able to do that as well. And for a lot of folks who just want to do multiple things, those types of passes work really well. But I know for some, when we go on vacation, whether we're in a road trip or we fly somewhere international, sometimes you want to see things, but you go there to relax a lot. So it depends on kind of what mode you're in and what you actually want to do. We heard about the reusable water bottle. That is a great idea. Just having that with you as well. That can definitely help you. Okay. Any other question? I see some great pointers going on in the chat. Again, we will use this information because it is great. So thank you so much for your participation. We have a little bit more information for you, so stay with us.
All right.
Over to Kathy.
Thank you so much, Kamaya. All right, so many great ideas on how to plan trips and save on money while you're traveling. So we're going to shift gears a little bit here now and talk about some ways that are kind of bigger picture things about protecting your finances related to travel. And we'll move through this pretty quickly, but we want to cover it so you're aware of it. And so, when we're talking about protecting your finances, one thing to think about is whether or not travel insurance is a good option for you and if it's a good fit for you, because what it can do is reimburse you for services if something happens on the trip, like you have to cancel or other things like that. But again, travel insurance isn't going to be for everybody, and it's not going to be something you necessarily want for every trip, but good to have it in your plan to think up through. And whenever you're looking at a travel insurance policy, remember that they're not all the same and they don't all cover the same things. So you want to read the fine print very carefully and make sure you understand it so that you know what you're buying. So just to give you an idea of what travel insurance covers, you can see that it, might have medical expenses covered by that are not covered by your health insurance. It might help with evacuation. Say you're on a mountain somewhere and you have to be helicoptered out. Then, knock on wood, that's not what we want, but you know, then that would pay for that. It can also pay for if you've made deposits on reservations and they're not refundable. So all these kinds of different things can come into play and be a part of travel insurance. But it is a significant cost. So again, one of those things to think about is whether or not the risk is going to be worth it for the benefits. One article I read on from NerdWallet said that they had found that comprehensive travel insurance plans typically cost about 4 to 8% of the cost of the trip. Now, of course, that's going to vary depending on the length of the trip, what all is covered, your age, and those kinds of factors. Now, when you start looking, if you were looking and shopping around for travel insurance, you might first look at what your credit cards offer. It may be a part of your credit card's perks that they offer a trip cancellation or lost luggage or rental car insurance if you use that credit card to book that trip. So it's something to look for. Sometimes when you are booking trips or you're making reservations, there will be an offer for travel insurance that comes along with that cruise or that hotel package or whatever it is. Those can be very convenient because it's just sort of pop up and are available, but you don't get to really customize that package too much. It's kind of like, here it is, and is this what you want? You can also shop around with different travel insurance companies, and you have more options for customizing it to fit your needs. So that could be something you'd want to do too. But it may really be, again, something where you want to sit down and think about what do you need and then do some comparison shopping. While you're thinking about, let's go back this way. While you're thinking about travel insurance, you might want to think about whether an annual plan would be a good buy for you. So that if you're a person who is traveling frequently, like maybe more than 2 major trips per year, you might find that an annual plan that covers all your trips is a better buy for you. But again, as we said I said a little earlier, whenever you're looking at these different plans, make sure you understand them. Look carefully to see what allows for coverage and what are the limitations. So when can you get money back for a canceled trip and when can you not, and under what situations? And then in our sort of unique situation with the pandemic, you want to really read for that in the travel insurance plans and understand what will they cover if you decide, let's say you're traveling to someplace and there's a surge in cases, will it cover it if you cancel then or not? So these are all things that you really want to take a look at when you're looking for travel insurance. Now, we mentioned that the fact about medical coverage could be a part of your travel insurance. And I just wanted to do a quick poll here to see whether you think that your current health insurance policy, does it cover you while you're traveling in different US states? So what if you go to Florida or California or New York? And you don't live there, will your health insurance cover you while you're traveling there? And then you might need to scroll down because there's a second question. Does your health insurance cover you while you're traveling outside of the United States? Those are different things. And of course, it's a little bit more complex than that. Sometimes your health insurance will cover you for emergencies, but not maybe prescriptions or physical therapy, but just in general, kind of a touching base here to see how aware are you of what is covered when you're traveling. And we've got some more coming in here. I'll give you 2 more seconds. All right. Let me just end that poll and we'll just take a quick look at that. So most people think their health insurance covers them while they're traveling in a different state, but not so sure what happens when you're traveling abroad. So there's no, it depends on the policies here, but definitely something to look at when you're planning a trip so that you know and you can have coverage to cover you in case something happens with your health that is not expected. So again, health insurance coverage specifically often, can be limited based on medical care outside of your network. So yes, you would get emergency care, but what about the next few days in the hospital if you happen to break your leg or something like that? If it's outside of your network, well, you have to pay extra for that. Sometimes you can call and talk to the health insurance company and find out, can your policy be extended and made more broad while you're traveling for a limited amount of time? And of course, you want to assess your own medical needs and risks depending on yourself and the place you're going when you're traveling. So investigating a special health insurance plan can be really helpful, especially when we're going international. And Brooke has put a link to a .gov website that has more information about getting health insurance while you're abroad. We just want to I think it's helpful to have those reminders, because sometimes we get so excited about traveling, we forget about things like protecting our finances. Now, as somebody I believe pointed out already in the chat, Medicare doesn't typically cover health care outside of the US, nor does it typically cover prescriptions you buy outside of the US. However, there are exceptions. And so we're not going to go into the details here. You need to check on your own Medicare plan and GAP supplemental plan. And so again, we've got a website here for you, as well as a phone number you can call for your local state health insurance program to really explore that a little bit more in detail, so you know what you do have and what you might need to purchase to supplement it. Okay, so along with protecting your finances, we need to protect ourselves and our own health. And as we know, health is really important, because it not only do we feel better, but it also becomes a financial issue when we're not so healthy. So we want you to stay safe, and things have really been changing frequently in the last year with lots of different things happening. So you want to look up information and do your research about where you're going before you travel there, as well as when you're about ready to leave, it is worth checking just a few days before too. And I really like this CDC website. It has great information about all these different destinations and things that you can do to prepare in terms of getting vaccines, or if there's any special things that you might want to think about packing to take with you. Just actually, it's really a nice resource, I think, to have handy when you're planning a trip somewhere abroad. And then right now, the CDC has a special website just related to the coronavirus and travelers. And again, this one they are updating regularly, so we're not going to go into details here as things keep changing, but again, a really good thing to check out. Sometimes we forget that not only do different countries have different rules about who can travel in and who can travel out during the pandemic, but different states have had different rules, and even different cities within states. And so looking up that information and knowing what quarantine rules there might be, it can be really important part right now of planning for your trips. Then you know what to expect. Just wanted to throw out there too, sometimes when we're in unfamiliar places, it's a little bit easier for fraud to happen. And so, you want to protect your finances and protect your personal information while you're out there traveling around. So these are sort of our typical tips on watching for fraud. So I think, it's just kind of a little reminder here. All right, so we've done such a great job in the chat. I'm just going to give everybody a little bit of time here to share a tip about how to travel safely. I think that when we think it through, it can make us feel much more comfortable. So what's your, go-to tip about traveling safely? And while people are maybe putting some of that information in the chat, I'm going to keep moving, because I know that we're going just a little bit long, but we're just about done, and we just got a couple more things to share with you. And then I'll let you all read the chat as it happens. Okay, so I just wanted to let you know that we have a blog called the Plan Well, Retire Well blog that Seisha and Kamaya and I all blog at. And we're going to be doing a bunch on travel. And right now we've just started one on travel tips. So we hope you join us and take a look at that over the next few weeks and months as we keep talking about travel and finances. The other thing I'd like to do is find out a little bit more about who all joined us today. We need this information for our funders, and all of it is anonymous. So I'm going to launch that poll. And again, this is one you have to scroll down on, but we really do appreciate getting this information and learning a little bit more about who joined us with the webinar today. And I'm going to keep moving while you guys are doing that poll too. We're multitasking, polls, chats, talk. And another resource for you, there's actually another webinar that Brooke and others were involved with and our other partners on how to save travel. And it's actually different. You can't talk about everything in an hour. And it talks a lot about if you're traveling maybe more for the first time or especially going abroad, things to think about. And so I highly recommend this webinar as well. And there is also a link here. We'd love to hear if this webinar suited you, if it's answered the questions that you had about saving money on travel. And so we've got all kinds of good information here that we want to be able to improve upon. And so we're really going to be looking at this evaluation feedback to see what else do we need to do to make this presentation really rock and roll if we didn't quite answer all your questions today. So thank you everybody that answered the poll. I'm going to go ahead and put that down. And we've got lots of sources which we will be sending out to you when we send out the email that you'll be getting in the next couple of weeks. It has a link to this recording and also has information about all the different sources that we put on. And I'll try to do a summary of some of these great tips that popped up into our chat as well. So we had such great participation with that.
We did.
So it's been fabulous. So thank you everybody for coming in. I'm going to be here for a bit to see if there were any questions we missed or anything else, but that does end our presentation. And happy travels safely and spending wisely in the future.
Yeah.